We have a breach at Quantico, FBI/Marine training facility in Virginia. We have special forces, ops soldiers, who are now being stalked in North Carolina, confronting two Chechens who didn't have any ID with them. We have a power grid in North Carolina that was shot up. 40,000 people went offline, again, by immigrants. This is just a tiny taste of what's going to happen in this country. A tiny taste. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. Even long after Biden's gone, long after that whole crowd is gone, the implications, the consequences for what these people have done to our immigration system, that is the Biden regime, to our sovereignty, to our ability to find out who's coming, has been completely destroyed. In a world full of terrorists, in a world full of enemies, now they're here. Criminals, terrorists, spies, they're here. And I want you to keep something in mind. China is going to invade Taiwan. Taiwan is not being provided with the armaments that it needs to protect itself. China's navy is larger than ours. Its maritime forces is 50 times larger than ours. And that's why Xi is sending single, military-age, communist Chinese individuals into our country. At the same time, Russia is way ahead of everybody in nuclearizing space. And they've got killer satellites up there, as does China, and we have nothing. They knock out our satellites, they knock out our GPS system, not just for us, we the people, but for our military. They're blinded. We're ready for none of it. None of it. There's a breaking story on Fox News. I've got a lot of breaking stories here this evening. A purportedly never-before-seen Department of Defense memo from the Obama era appears to indicate the federal government already may have had original copies of the documents seized at former President Trump's Mar-A-Lago home in 2022, raising serious questions about the pretext for the raid, Fox News Digital has exclusively learned. America First Legal released today what it says is a newly unearthed memo from the Obama administration, Department of Defense, confirming the government may have already had originals of the alleged classified documents involved in Special Counsel Jack Smith's sham prosecution against President Trump, says the group. The document is titled Memorandum of Understanding entered into by Presidential Information Technology Community Entities. It's from 2015 and followed in October 2014 Russian breach of the executive office of the president's network. That would be Obama. Then President Barack Obama took executive action to create the Presidential Information Technology Community, PITC, to better protect the executive branch from such attacks, according to the group. Now, the PITC, which includes representatives from federal agencies such as Defense and Homeland Security, effectively established the president controls information he receives through the PITC network. The executive action was made public at the time, but the group said it obtained a never-before-seen memo confirming that the Defense Department has been, quote, operating and maintaining the information resources and information systems provided to the President, Vice President, and Executive Office of the President. Their point is, this has all been digitized. This group of various agencies had the very information, already had the information, that they sent a SWAT team, allegedly, to together. The memo could mean that the federal government has stored and retained executive office of the president documents, including a substantial amount, if not all, the President Trump's classified documents, they said. What America First Legal has uncovered after months of investigative work paints an unfortunate picture of the rule of law in Washington. A former president of the United States, the most democratically accountable officer under our Constitution, was subject to a politicized referral concocted by the Biden White House that led to an armed FBI raid of his home, where his wife and youngest child live, and is now subject to prosecution, said the group. And to now realize the Biden administration could have avoided an illegal referral process to recover records the government already possessed, that it could have used normal means to ensure that the records of the former president should be housed in his presidential library, not yet built because of the hordes of investigations aimed at silencing him, were subject to a temporary hold for purposes of archives review, yet didn't, speaks loudly to America. The law protects only those who follow the norms of one party. And it goes on. And this is important in another sense. Julie Kelly came on this program after seeing documents that were released in the case in Florida. And she accurately reported that the memo, the directive that was given to FBI SWAT, did include the possible use of deadly force. The Attorney General of the United States today and others are calling this a conspiracy theory that President Trump could have been harmed if he'd been there. And there were reports that said they wouldn't have used deadly force anyway because the Secret Service was there. Now, I addressed this, and I want to underscore it again. We have Merrick Garland, who came out of his, the bathroom and finally spoke. Cut 8, Mr. Producer, go.
Most of us got a solicitation email this morning from the former President of the United States saying that the Justice Department had authorization to kill him during the Mar-A-Lago raid. First, can you give us some clarification on that particular point that he's making and whether or not deadly force is authorized in other interventions, including...
That's very interesting how the reporter asked this question, isn't it? Snarky little bastard. Go ahead.
Mr. Biden's residence and office. And the second question is...
Can I do one at a time? Okay. On that one, that allegation is false, and it is extremely dangerous. The document that is being referred to in the allegation is the Justice Department standard policy limiting the use of force. As the FBI advises, it is part of the standard operations plan for searches, and in fact, it was even used in the consensual search of President Biden's home.
Let's stop. The consensual search of Biden's home. There was no consensual search at Mar-A-Lago. You sent a SWAT team. Now, I am perplexed as a former Department of Justice official. You would use your standard form, your standard operating procedure to send heavily armed FBI SWAT team to Mar-a-Lago with standard orders. And those standard orders apparently include when to use deadly force. Why would you use a standard order when you're sending a heavily armed SWAT team to Mar-a-Lago? This isn't a conspiracy question. I'm not saying they went there to assassinate. No, I don't believe that. That's not my point. My point is, look how irresponsible and dangerous this was. Then they say, well, the Secret Service was given a heads up. More reason to take your standard form because the Secret Service is involved, Mar-a-Lago is involved, the family of a former president or a president who could have returned was involved. People at the club, perhaps, are involved, even though it's 6 a.m. Employees. This was reckless. That's the point. There was no need for an FBI SWAT team, period. There was no need for a criminal warrant of any kind. Period. It could have been pursued civilly. That's why there was disagreement within the FBI at the lower ranks, raising questions about doing this. And yet they pressed forward, and Garland signed off on it. They use a standard form to send a SWAT team to the former president's home where the Secret Service is present? You realize how irresponsible that was? You sent it to Biden's home. It was consensual. What does that have to do with anything? It was consensual. The reason they sent the SWAT team at 6 a.m. under cover of dark was to surprise the people who were there. They didn't want them to touch anything. They got a secret warrant. The SWAT team acted in secret. It acted at 6 a.m. and under the cover of dark with a standard order. Even though the Secret Service is there, and even though they said they spoke to the Secret Service. So why did you have to conduct yourself this way if you spoke to the Secret Service? And if you didn't speak to the Secret Service, further endangering everybody on the scene. This was the most irresponsible, outrageous FBI SWAT act ever. Ever. And 100% unnecessary. 100% unnecessary. Let me give you an example. Secret Service works for the Department of Homeland Security. The Attorney General could have picked up the phone if this is what they wanted to do. I think the whole damn thing's outrageous. Called the Secretary of DHS and said, look, I want your Secret Service to go collect those boxes. We have a warrant. We have a warrant that allows the Secret Service to do that. So the Secret Service that are there pick up the boxes and remove. I don't think they should have done any of that. But if you're going to do it, Mr. Producer, wouldn't that be the smart thing to do? What are you sending armed FBI agents and SWAT with a standard order in the cover of dark at 6 a.m. in the morning to the former president's home? The hell is that all about? That's the point. That's the damn point. And so important were these documents. So crucial. All the leaks to the New York Slimes. All the lies that they regurgitate. Oh, nuclear secret. Yeah, right, sure. And they get the documents. And now we know they mishandled them. What's the chain of custody? We don't know. Why did they change the covers? We don't know. Why were the documents out of order? We don't know. How do we know anything's missing? They mishandled classified information, which could mean it was spoiled, the spoliation, we call it. It matters what order the documents are in. It matters what covers are on the documents. It matters whose fingerprints are on the documents. It all matters when you're in a criminal case that's based on the documents. But even more, mishandling classified information. Where did they put it? How did they handle it? Because, Mr. Producer, if you're not the president or former president of the United States, mishandling classified information, right? Doesn't that violate the Espionage Act? Ooh. So many questions.